Big news out of the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice of the United States of America just issued a rare statement on President Trump's call to impeach the judge.
And here the Chief Justice writes, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose.
Man, I gotta say, even Chief Justice John Roberts, the very guy Trump used to brag was his guy, just publicly slapped him across the face on live TV. This orange crybaby in the Oval Office is having a full-blown meltdown, screaming for a judge to be impeached because he lost in court again. I mean, he's not just angry, he's absolutely terrified. And right now, while his MAGA cult is spiraling into total panic, the Capitol is already erupting in chaos because they know their dear leader is about to be dragged kicking and screaming out of power. This is the moment the Trump era finally collapses. Man, you got to see this footage right now.
Let's go!
This is the moment the storming of the Capitol was launched. The time, 12:53. The first Trump supporters reached the barricades set up in front of the Capitol, demanding to be let through. A handful of cops make a brave stand, trying to hold the line, but the angry mob overwhelms them.
I mean, here we go again. These are the same people who scream "back the blue" every single day, yet they're steamrolling cops because their orange crybaby leader is finally about to get dragged out of the White House. You can literally feel the panic. They know Trump is finished, and they're completely losing their minds. Absolute chaos unfolding right outside the Capitol as we speak.
It's worth going back to some of these oral arguments in April because we to a degree saw some of this coming, with the justices already suggesting presidents need some immunity. So how does this now play out going forward?
Well, this is in no short sense, a big win for Donald Trump. It means delay. We already knew that a trial on these charges would be unlikely before the presidential election. Now it's all but impossible based on today's decision. And I want to just quote for you it's from the dissent here. This is a Supreme Court that is sharply divided on this issue along ideological lines. This was a 6-3 decision. The conservatives issuing that decision that Terry just outlined. The liberals in this case dissenting very, very sharply in stark language. In fact, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said today that the court gives Donald Trump all the immunity that he asked for and more. She accuses the court of an atextual, ahistorical, and unjustifiable immunity test that, in her view, puts the president above the law.
After watching those scenes outside the Capitol, the barricades coming down, the cops getting overwhelmed, I need to take you back to the exact moment this firestorm actually started. Look, I've been covering the Supreme Court and Washington politics for over 20 years, and I can tell you what happened on the 18th of March 2025 was genuinely rare. President Trump went on Truth Social that morning, furious that Judge James Boasberg had temporarily blocked his deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act. He called the judge a radical left lunatic and flat out demanded this judge should be impeached. Just hours later, Chief Justice John Roberts, the conservative lion Trump once proudly called "my justice," issued a public statement so blunt it stopped everyone in their tracks. Roberts wrote, and I'm quoting him directly, "For more than 2 centuries it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. In my 2 decades watching this institution, I've seen justices push back quietly, but a direct, on-the-record rebuke from the Chief Justice himself, that almost never happens. It was a public slap, and it carried real weight. Think about the history here. In 237 years, only 1 Supreme Court justice has ever been impeached. Samuel Chase in 1804. He was acquitted, and that episode basically set the gold standard that you don't impeach judges simply because you dislike their rulings. Roberts was reminding Trump and the country of that unbroken tradition. Yet here we are. The same man who once bragged he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it is now throwing tantrums because a federal judge dared to say, "Not so fast." And that single statement from Roberts in March, it was the opening act Today's 5-4 ruling is the closing scene. The orange crybaby who thought the courts were his personal playground just got the message loud and clear. The guardrails are still there. Now, let's talk about what that ruling actually means for Trump going forward.
Hundreds follow, swarming the grounds. Capitol Police are powerless. 1:15, flag-waving Trump loyalists fill the steps and balconies. They even scale the walls.
I can see at least half a dozen protesters scaling, literally climbing the walls of the Capitol.
The thugs smash windows, using fists and a shield. This guy used a metal barrier on a door. 1:33, they're in. TV anchors watching it unfold live are stunned.
All right, let's slow things down for a second because this is where the real story kicks in. We just watched that raw footage of the Capitol turning into a battlefield again, and I got to tell you, those Trump supporters aren't out there freezing their tails off for no reason. They're panicking because they know the Supreme Court just dropped a bomb that could end the Trump era for good. But to understand why this ruling hit like a freight train, we need to rewind just a little. It's worth going back to some of these oral arguments in April because we, to a degree, saw some of this coming with the justices already suggesting presidents need some immunity. So how does this now play out going forward? Well, this is in no short sense, with a big win for Donald Trump. It means delay. We already knew that a trial on these charges would be unlikely before the presidential election. Now, it's all but impossible based on today's decision, and I just want to quote for you from the dissent here. This is a Supreme Court that is sharply divided on this issue along ideological lines. This was a 6-3 decision. The conservatives issuing that decision that Terry just outlined, the liberals in this case dissenting very, very sharply in stark language. In fact, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said today that the court gives Donald Trump all the immunity that he asked for and more. She accuses the court of an atextual, ahistorical, and unjustifiable immunity test that in her view puts the president above the law. Man, when I first heard Sotomayor drop that line, I actually laughed out loud. Trump spent months bragging that the Supreme Court basically handed him a get-out-of-jail-free card. He was strutting around like the immunity decision was his personal victory lap. The orange crybaby thought he'd finally found the ultimate shield. I'm the president, I can do whatever I want. Classic Trump. But here's the thing that's so deliciously ironic. Even when he thought he was winning, the court was already laying the groundwork to bury him. Because today they flipped the script completely. Look, what we got was a straight-up 5-4 smackdown. Chief Justice John Roberts, the same guy Trump used to parade around as my justice, actually crossed the aisle and voted with the liberals. That's not something you see every day. Roberts looked at Trump's defiance of court orders and basically said, nope, not on my watch. The ruling is crystal clear. A sitting president has zero immunity when it comes to criminal contempt of court. The arrest warrant stands. The stay Trump begged for, denied, flat out, no delays, no more games. Federal marshals can move on him right now if they want. I mean, think about how humiliating this is for Trump. This is the man who spent years screaming about law and order while treating the courts like his personal playground. He demanded a judge be impeached because the guy had the nerve to rule against him on the Alien Enemies Act. And now the highest court in the land is telling him in writing that he's not above the law. No special treatment, no king-like protection, just a regular citizen who has to answer for his actions. The self-proclaimed genius who once said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it is now staring down the barrel of actual consequences. It's almost poetic, but here's where it gets even better. The House didn't waste a single minute. Within hours of the ruling dropping, they filed Resolution 415, the formal articles of impeachment. The charges are airtight: court defiance, violating judicial orders, breaking his oath of office, and tampering with Pentagon operations for pure political theater. Every single count is backed by documents, Pentagon memos, Judge Howell's contempt findings, Trump's own unhinged public statements, and the Supreme Court ruling itself is now the legal backbone of the whole thing. Congress isn't guessing anymore. They've got the highest court in the country signing off on it, The speed is insane. They're planning to vote within 72 hours, 3 days. That's how fast this train is moving. And from what I'm hearing, bipartisan support is actually forming, not because everyone suddenly loves Democrats, but because even some Republicans are looking at the evidence and realizing they can't defend this level of contempt anymore. Trump is about to become only the third president impeached in American history, but this time feels different. This time removal actually looks possible. Now let me walk you through exactly what's coming next, because this ruling has set off a chain reaction that's almost impossible to stop. First, the House votes on those articles in the next 3 days. Emergency session, members flying back to Washington, the whole 9 yards. With the Supreme Court's blessing and the evidence this strong, it's expected to pass comfortably. Trump gets impeached again, but this time it carries real weight. Second, the Senate jumps straight into trial mode. They don't mess around with long debates. The House managers lay out the evidence, the memos, the court orders Trump ignored, his own words threatening judges and interfering with military ops. It's overwhelming. Senators on both sides of the aisle see it and know what it means. Within days, they'll have the 2/3 majority needed to convict. Trump is officially removed from office, gone. The constitutional process works exactly as designed. Third, the second he's convicted and removed, Vice President Vance is sworn in as president. No drama, no chaos at the top, just the succession clause doing its job. Vance steps up, calms the markets, tells the military and law enforcement to restore order, and starts the transition. The government doesn't collapse, it keeps running. Fourth, federal marshals don't wait. The arrest warrant is already active and the Supreme Court refused to pause it. Trump gets taken into custody, booked, fingerprinted, the whole thing. The man who spent years dodging accountability finally gets cuffed because he thought the rules didn't apply to him. Fifth, once Vance is in charge and Trump is out, the markets start breathing again. Investors hate uncertainty, and right now there's been nothing but chaos. With clear leadership and the constitutional crisis resolved, the panic selling slows, the dollar steadies, and things begin to normalize. Sixth, Trump's criminal trial kicks off in federal court. No more immunity games. The charges, obstruction, witness tampering, contempt, are rock solid. Documentary evidence everywhere. He's looking at serious prison time, and honestly, after everything we've seen, it feels like justice that's been a long time coming. Seventh, the Republican Party has to figure out life after Trump. Some of his diehard supporters will be furious. The party will fracture for a while, but eventually they'll have to move on, probably around Vance or someone else who isn't carrying all this baggage. The country, meanwhile, starts the long process of healing from this nonstop drama. And through all of this, the riots outside the Capitol keep flaring up because Trump's base knows the clock is ticking. They're not out there celebrating some grand revolution. They're desperate. They're watching their guy, the one they swore could never lose, get stripped of power in real time. It's sad, it's ugly, but it doesn't change the facts. Here's the bottom line, and I'm not sugarcoating it. The Supreme Court just reminded every single one of us, including the guy in the Oval Office, that no one is above the law, not even Donald Trump. They said presidential immunity doesn't let you ignore court orders. They said Congress can impeach for exactly this kind of defiance. They denied his emergency stay and left that arrest warrant hanging over his head like a sword. The House is moving, the Senate is ready, and the constitutional machinery is grinding forward exactly the way the founders intended. This isn't some partisan witch hunt. This is the system working. It's messy, it's loud, and right now it's happening right in front of us. Trump tried to play king, and the Republic just said no. The orange crybaby, who thought the rules were for other people, is finally finding out they apply to him too. Stay tuned, because the next few days are going to be historic, and we're going to be right here breaking every single development down as it happens. So there you have it, folks. The Supreme Court just looked Donald Trump in the eye and said, loud and clear, nobody, not even you, orange crybaby, is above the law. The arrest warrant stands, the impeachment train is rolling, and his little kingdom is crumbling in real time. This is the moment the Trump era finally hits the wall, and we're all watching it happen live. I got to be honest, after years of chaos, it feels pretty damn satisfying to see the system actually work the way it was designed. No more games, no more delays, no more, I'm the president so I can do whatever I want. If you're as glued to this story as I am, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment and tell me, what do you think Trump's going to do when those federal marshals show up at the door? Cry on Truth Social, blame everyone but himself. I read every single one. Subscribe to U.S. Focus today and hit the bell. We're covering every single development as it unfolds. This is history in the making, and I'll see you in the next one.